everyone. Welcome to the Fire Station Building Committee meeting of Wednesday, August 14th at 6:30 here at the Lakeville Police Station. I'd like to ask everybody if we could rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, it's really nice to see everybody again. I know it's been a little while, so I know our lives have been kind of hectic, but it's summer and we're almost into fall now, back to school. I'm glad that we have a couple of members that Kate was running a little late. She had an emergency at work, and Peter reached out, and he wasn't going to be able to join us this evening. So, but just for just quick purposes of those in the audience and those that may be watching, if we could just, again, because we don't have name tags, if we could just please just go around the room just to introduce ourselves and who we are representing here on the subcommittee.
Bob Nunes, Interim Town Administrator.
Mike McCullough, Member at Large.
Michael Bryan, Fire Chief, Lakeville.
Lorraine Carboni, Select Board.
Alex Murphy, Pomeroy Associates, Owners Project Manager.
Taylor MacDonald, Pomeroy Associates.
Kyle Robinson, Project Architect with Secoshio and Associates Architects.
Matt Simon, Member at Large.
Larry Costan, Finance Committee.
Hey, Dowling, Building Commissioner.
All right, thank you. First order of business, we had 3 sets of minutes in our packet. Did everybody have an opportunity to review them? So on the agenda, we had listed 2 dates, and so what we can do is we can vote the June 26th meeting minutes, but we'll just add them onto the next agenda just to ratify our vote for the evening. So I know the person that's recording and taking the minutes for our meeting is really trying to make sure that they stay right on top of them for us. Basically a meeting behind. But that being said, I know LakeCAM is taping this evening. Is anybody else here recording this meeting? Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Fire Station Building Committee meeting minutes of May 16th.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Yes. Nunes, yes.
McCullough, yes.
O'Brien, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Costan, aye.
Dowling, aye.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 29th meeting minutes of Fire Station Building Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll please.
Nunes, aye.
McCullough, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Costan, aye.
Dowling, aye.
And then lastly, June 26th meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll please.
Nunes, aye.
McCullough, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Costan, aye.
Dowling, aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to invite our Parks representatives up. They have submitted a letter to the Fire Station Building Committee that I would like to just, bring up for discussion. And I think that
I'm always kicking the finance committee out.
There's a chair right there, you know. Oh, there's 2 of you? Let me
oh,
move.
Larry, somebody can sit over here too if you want.
Let me move over.
You got your turn?
Here, I'll just drop out of the way.
No, Mr. Chairman. You just state your name and.
Yep. My name's Michael Smith. I'm the chair of the Parks Commission, and this is Peter Murdy. He is our Parks Clerk. I want to thank you for allowing us to come here this evening to discuss some correspondence that we had sent to you. To give you a little background, a couple months ago, Peter approached me and said, hey, in lieu of, what's going on with our office, which is in pretty bad shape, maybe there's some way that we can benefit from this fire station going up here, I mean, considering we gave you 80 acres for it, so I'm thinking, you know, we can get something for it. So, so this letter was approved by everybody on the parks, just so you know. But I'm gonna have Peter give you, since Peter's in the office all the time, I'm gonna let him give you a rundown on the condition of the office.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having us, even being willing to consider this. As far as the office is concerned, my understanding, I'm relatively new to the scene, but my understanding is that the Parks was moved there rather quickly in response to COVID and the need for some additional space during that time, and that facility was sort of requisitioned for that purpose. It's you know, it works. I'm there part-time, and there's no one else who needs on the park staff at this point. But looking forward, especially if you have a parks director at some time, you're going to need some better office space than that. There's no handicapped accessibility. There's no insulation. The roof is leaking. There's no bathroom that's functioning. There's no running water. There is some heating in there, but it's not well dispersed, if you will. The roof leaks. Windows don't operate properly. Not some of them operate, some of them don't. So yeah, it's not the best building. Office space. It needs some TLC is what it needs.
I mean, we haven't even checked for the M word, but,
Yeah.
but, you know, the problem is that it's very hard for us to meet with people in there. You know, whether if it's raining out or if it's cold or hot in the winter, it's really cold in there, there's no insulation. If we're talking to someone and someone had to go to the bathroom, if Loon Pond is blocked, then we gotta run up here. We would like to spend a little more time there. I know we couldn't have our meetings there because there was no handicap access, but it's just, there is a storage facility next to it, but that's all it is. It's just wood. So it's not in the best of shape. We're concerned about it going forward, depending on what kind of winter we have. It's not conducive for us to have meetings there. We do have wireless there, correct? That taps
Yes,
into
yeah.
the system, which is great. But I know, Nate, you looked at it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no well there or anything. Can you give an update on what you know about it, and if we were to do anything, what you recommend what we would do?
Well, I can touch on it quickly. Obviously the office is in really bad shape, and to Pete's point, it was kind of a rush when COVID hit. They were in the current town hall, and it's in bad shape, so it needs to be fixed. For the sake of this discussion, though, Madam Chair, I'd like to recommend that the topic goes to the select board for discussion, and the select board could give this committee direction as to how to fit it into the building if necessary, what other forms of mitigation could happen, because you got to remember too, and unfortunately we weren't funded further for the town hall, but if this project's to go forward, we're going to open up 6,500 square feet of the town hall, or whatever was there. So, you know, there's also a possibility of getting, so we're going to be looking for a use of that space, because once the building's built, you know, we'd be there. So I do think that a lot of this would have to come from the select board. I don't think this committee would be appropriately voting yay or nay on something like this.
I agree. And that was something that, I wanted to just make mention to the members that, you know, this is something, you know, that was of consideration that we would, you know, obviously send to, you know, to the select board. So I am glad that you were, you know, able to come tonight and at least speak to it. And, you know, we are an advisory, you know, committee,
Right.
and we make recommendations up to the, you know, select board, so,
I mean, moving back to town hall would be great,
Yeah.
if that space was open. I mean, that just makes a ton of sense, because it's, yeah, that would be wonderful.
but I applaud the, you know, the out-of-the-box thinking, because I know that, you know, anytime we have an initiative or, you know, a concern, we always ask for a solution, and so this is,
Right.
you know, an out-of-the-box, you know, opportunity to try to address, you know, a concern that you have in the office, so.
Madam Chair, I agree with you totally. I mean, the spirit of collaboration and, you know, what we've used for the parks for and what the parks do for the town. You know, we have considered, you know, we're using parks property, that there's some, you know, return on that, I would expect. I know that when we built this building, we took and added to the flow of water in the soccer parking lot. And to mitigate that, we added the drainage, and you did lose parking spots as a result of that. I think this group, it's important to remain cognizant of the effects of this building on the parks. I think we've been pretty respectful for that, even, I think what Spencer's gonna go through tonight, as far as making sure that the easier piece wasn't to move it back in the parks, to maintain, its proximity to Bedford Street to lessen impacts of the parks. But I do think that, you know, this group would support an endeavor, like that, but I do think that the direction.
Come from the select board.
I mean, I guess the other option, and being on the town's capital expenditure committee, that could always be brought up at our,
Absolutely.
with the free cash and everything, that could be brought up, saying, all right, we're just going to do the building there, or, I mean, it's all predicated on whether this project goes forward,
Correct.
if that space is available. Now, hopefully it will, obviously. So I guess what we're here for is to, if and when we go forward, that we have kind of your support in finding out solutions to this.
I'd like to make a motion that we refer to the select board.
All right, motion is second, any discussion?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I haven't been in the building myself, the parks building out here, but roughly what square footage is that? And then roughly what square footage would you need? Is it just an office? I'm just
It's
going through some things in my head. I'm just curious, but.
When you walk in, there's a file room, and then there's a small office, and then there's a little area where you can meet. And then on the side, there's just a storage shed, which you put signs and everything in. I mean, I think the size is fine, except, you know, if the bathroom needs to be done. And it would be kind of nice to have a bigger meeting area, but it doesn't need a lot, it just needs updating.
Yeah.
In support of the park, we're only talking 500 to 600 square feet is the current space, and I've seen it, it's in bad shape, you know, off subject slightly, from this group, but I wouldn't want to see you guys wait until we built a fire station and occupied a fire station to do something. You do a great job, and you really probably ought to get that fixed up quicker, so, you know, there is that motion on the table. I think it does belong to the select board, but for me, I would support whatever you guys need to do.
Because it doesn't have a
Thanks.
well, so those are just kind of the things.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just my reaction to the letter, I'm not opposed to anything in the letter at all. We've had the Parks Department in our offices before. In addition to COVID, there was concerns about privacy, you know, confidential information going around, things like that. So, you know, I'm all about serving the greater good of the town. I'm all about serving efficiency and addressing town needs in the most cost-effective way possible. It's just the only thing that can't happen is if, in my eyes, would be a delay to the project or harm to the operation, and devoid of those two things, I'm happy to be a good team player with whatever the solution may be.
Perfect.
Anybody else? All right,
On the
roll,
motion, Nunes, yes?
McCullough, aye.
O'Brien,
Carboni, aye?
Simon, I.
Costan, aye.
Darrell, aye.
Excellent. So,
Perfect.
Mr. Chairman, I will reach out to you and let you know,
When it's on
what
your
meeting it's
agenda.
gonna be on, so that you can, join us and for a proper discussion. with
And
the
just,
board.
you know, let me know what information that I can give you beforehand.
Okay.
And then we'll do it. Thanks for all your support, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Get out of my
Thank
seat.
you. You can have your seat.
push it over to the design team pretty quickly, but, you know, the reason we postponed our last meeting was because we've been working on a lot of things, the design team's been working on a lot of things in the background, so, and part of those have been new site layouts, new floor plan layouts, that, you know, we've been meeting separately with the fire department on, to get feedback on, and as well as, much further investigations on the stream and what that looks like, so, we're at a point now where we have, a lot of good information. You'll see a much different site plan. You'll see some different floor plans, and Parr and Spencer will talk about the stream, and I think we're headed in a very good direction with the stream, as an agreement. You know, hopefully the findings will push us into intermittency for that stream, but you know, we're heading in that direction, I think. So we have some good information. We've done field visits, Parr's done field visits, so if we were to meet, you know, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we just didn't have all that information together, so I didn't want us just to meet. So I think tonight you'll see a good update on where things are. We're still on track as far as design development goes, so I'm gonna hand it over to the design team and let them go through those updates.
So I'm gonna hand it over to Spencer real quick, so we get, you know, pretty quickly here, so we can do his piece, but what we just gave you is, a conceptual site plan that Spencer's put together. He'll talk more to that. And then in there as well are the redesign, kind of the I guess, first pass at the redesign of the building to kind of make it fit in the site a little better to reduce the impacts on the wetlands and the other setbacks that we have. So, we'll address the building specifically afterwards, but I think if Spencer wants to start, we'll talk about the stream and then get into the site a little bit more.
Yeah, so I just passed out a letter, that will sort of detail some of the stuff that I'm about to talk about. There are full versions of the report itself, that I handed over to Nate, that if anybody chooses to, grab one, you're more than welcome to. So.
Can I just hit one thing, Spencer? Sorry.
Yes.
There's, in this letter, there are like a lot of terms and, you know, ANRAD, things like that. Just be cognizant when you're talking about it, to kind of spell it out so people know at home, and if they don't know, understand here, so.
Yep, you got it. So I'll go over just the stream stuff first, and then that'll sort of run in parallel with a lot of the design stuff that happened at the same time. But I'll go through the stream stuff first. So at the last meeting, you know, I had sort of spelled out, you know, hey, we've got this stream. We believe it's prescient to be operating as if it's perennial, because the bar to argue that it's intermittent is a long regulatory one, and there's a weight of evidence sort of approach that needs to be taken with it. And so we had said, you know, at this time, you know, it's better to operate that it's perennial. And so if you'll remember, that is sort of why we had this elongated access drive to stay out of the riverfront area, because the riverfront area means one-to-one restoration, means higher costs. So since then, we had a very enthusiastic Nate ask us to go out there and start getting that weight of evidence. We were very successful in that regard. Nate provided a ton of photos. We went out there a total of 5 times. The regulation is within a continuous 12-month span, you need 4 data points showing either stagnant water or totally dry conditions. We went out there a total of 5 times. 1 time was directly after a rainstorm. We did get flowing water from stormwater flows off the road, so we chose to toss that instance. So the other 4 times, the only standing water we got was in and around the corrugated metal culvert. That standing water is because, you know, metal's not very good for infiltrating stormwater. So other than that, standing water, which standing water in and of itself is not it doesn't sort of invalidate the site visit. So other than that standing water, we were just getting generally muddy conditions, generally dry conditions, a lot of trash, debris, heavy foliage, a lot of things that are suggesting this stream is not getting a lot of flows, and it's not getting consistent continuous flows. So in that letter that you see there, we sort of spelled out all the evidence that we saw, and we're comfortable making the conclusion that we believe that enough evidence was amassed to be able to make the argument that it's an intermittent stream. This, of course, is not locked in until the Concom, the approving authority for such situation, approves it, and it's not locked in until the DEP has a chance to at least review it themselves. So it was sort of decided as a result of this evidence that we've gathered that the best approach here would be to, on a parallel track of the, I'll just say the general schedule for the project, on a parallel track to be running an ANRAD through the Concom to lock in these resources for 3 years. And what this would allow us to do is say, hey, this is our intermittent stream, this is the documentation for it, let's lock it in, let's have the Concom approve that, and then let's be able to design around that and permit that once we hopefully get to those stages of the project.
Can you just explain the ANRAD?
Sorry, an ANRAD is a resource area delineation is the RAD. It's a abbreviated notice. Yes, thank you. So basically, what an ANRAD does, an ANRAD filing is, hey, here is the natural resources on site. Here's a stream. Here's a wetland. Here's a bog. Here's a this, that, and the other thing. Is this acceptable? Did we delineate this correctly? The Concom then goes, yes, you did, or no, you didn't. Here's what we believe it is. You go through this long drawn out process with Concom, and then at the end of it, you get an ORAD, which is your basically, we agree that this is the natural resources on site. We agree with your determinations. You may now design based upon this. And so when it comes to then design development and permitting for something like a fire station, there is no more discussion about, is this intermittent, is this perennial, is this a wetland, or is this the wetland line correct? All of that is locked in the ORAD itself. So this will allow us to basically lock all that stuff in the same time that we're trying to argue that this is the fire station, here's why we need it, here's why it's good, here's why it's a good project. We'll be able to also say, hey, and we've also locked in all of the natural resources, so when we go for the eventual permit, we have all that stuff set in stone, essentially. So that's the best approach here. And so that was sort of something that we had needed to figure out as a result of last meeting, because there was still a desire to change the site in a lot of significant ways. One of the ways we were going to make the site more efficient was to have more of an L-shaped building. You can see the pretty stark contrast in the general shape of the building. You have this very long, narrow building, and now as Kyle's done his own design development tasks or schematic design tasks, now you have a much more compressed L-shaped building. So that leads us sort of into the schematic design stuff, the changes that you see here. Clearly there was a big desire to have the location of the building change, and so in the immediate aftermath, I spoke with Kyle and Mark, and it was, they determined that, hey, we're gonna change the shape of the building. If we change the shape of the building, can we move forward with a more compressed site design as is desired? And so they provided that to me sort of on Monday. So since Monday, I've adjusted a bunch of the site stuff. You can still see a lot of the general site stuff is the same. You still have this sort of block of parking out back that's close to the entrances here. It's still the same. It's more of an L shape now. It's a little more efficiently designed, but you get the same amount of parking. You have 40 spaces out back here to be able to utilize for personnel. As a result of moving the building sort of closer to the road, we had to compress down and sort of isolate this public parking area. So you can see it used to be sort of this big gaumy, drive through, drive around sort of deal. It is now simply a pull in and pull out sort of site flow. This area, as Kyle would also tell you, is still a little bit under development because, as I understand, there are still some more tasks that you're going to go through to compress the size of the building, correct? So I'll be reacting to that, maybe making this a bit more spacious and accessible. But as it stands now, we've moved the building. I mean, your separation to the right-of-way line, the property line essentially, is 71 feet. it used to be, well, this dimension was about 240 before. So by a factor of a third, we've cut down that distance. You can see the site distance in terms of the visibility of the station has greatly benefited from that. Essentially where this 159 marker base point for the state highway layout is, from there you can see generally most of even the bays of the fire station, whereas before you were basically going to have to be right up on the fire station before you saw that it was there. So that's sort of the monumental change that has occurred. All of my test pits are taken up by the building now, so I'll have to do more. That's too bad. But other than that, there's no real huge ramifications for sort of the site design itself. I've run quite a bit of analysis in terms of turning radii and accessibility. The ladder truck, I do believe I modeled about a 50-foot ladder truck, something along those lines. You're able to access out back, you're able to pull in, you're able to pull through and back up into that bay, you're able to turn around and back into that bay with that very large vehicle. The rest of these, obviously ambulances, I believe were sort of in these two bays here. Those have free accessibility all the way around the site. Some of these slightly smaller engines still have all the accessibility in the world to be able to turn around, especially considering that the ladder truck does. So in terms of vehicle accessibility, I believe the site is pretty much all the way there. Obviously I can show, I don't have them now, but I can absolutely provide those graphically for folks to see, sort of after the meeting later on down the road. So that is more or less the site changes that were made. The current thing that hangs in the balance with the intermittent stream, because like I said, they'll run on parallel tracks, so until the intermittent stream or the perennial stream, until that decision's been made, we're sort of hanging in the balance between needing to do a ton of restoration work and not needing to do a ton of restoration work. So the previous impact was about 13,000 square feet, and I had showed you, this is what you're impacting right here. As you can see it now, and I don't have it quite perfectly shown, but as you can see it now, this is sort of your impact. There's a further argument to be made that this is actually the resource riverfront delineation area. So to sort of summarize how we hang in the balance and what the ramifications are, there is one track where we are an intermittent stream, and that is the most desirable track. I believe that is the track we're on. We've made that argument now. I believe that if the approving authority asked for more information, we could get it. The stream is pretty consistently dry out there as long as it didn't rain the day before. So if we needed to get more information, we absolutely could. We believe the information that we have now is enough to sustain the argument that it is an intermittent stream. I believe this is the most likely scenario. If it is an intermittent stream, this colorful green line more or less goes away. This brutal red line more or less goes away, and we don't have to worry about restoration. We more have to worry about the concessions that we have to make for the 100-foot wetland buffer that we will be affecting. So that's the most desirable outcome. The second outcome that is potential here is that we're fully in a riverfront area, the stream is perennial, and there is no argument to be made about the buffer for the stream on the other side of the road. The DEP ends up holding us to this resource buffer zone. This buffer zone also applies, and then we have basically all of this affected space within this green area as an area that needs to be restored. That is about 27,000 square feet, and that is just about double the restoration area that I had displayed last meeting. This is the absolute worst case scenario. If it is perennial, there is sort of the secondary argument that we end up making that the buffer zone, the riparian and general riverfront zone, protecting the stream on the other side of the road has no validity on our side of the road and is totally disconnected. So the argument we would then make to DEP is that we believe that the buffer area that we should be held to is only for that resource area that is on our side of the road that is affected by our development practices. So that resource area delineation, that riverfront area, would then sort of circle around like this and ignore the 200-foot offset for that river on the other side of the road. So this impact generally is about 17,000 square feet. And that is slightly more than the area that we had delineated last time, which was about 13,000 square feet. But we do believe that there is the capacity on site for 17,000 square feet of restoration. So what do we do with this? Well, we design as we want the fire station to look, as if the stream is going to get called intermittent. If we end up having to do riverfront restoration, we'll make every argument that we can to reduce the amount of restoration that we have to do. But we will not have a determination by the time we need to get through design development. So the smart thing to sort of do here is when we go to tasks like project estimation, we have them factor in 2 scenarios of needing to do restoration for the riverfront area impact that we have. So that way we know going into it, at least we have an answer before town meeting that, hey, we got through the NRI process, this is an intermittent stream, we're good. Or we go to town, we say, hey, we went through the NRI process to perennial stream, we know we need this much restoration work, we know how much it costs, and sort of the impacts of not having that information in the design development stage become more or less a moot point. I can continue my work. You all can continue reviewing that work and making comments and getting the site that we want, and just knowing that this intermittent perennial argument is going to be made at the same time as we're pushing to town meeting.
Can I jump in a little bit?
Absolutely.
I know you've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
Spencer's obviously a wealth of knowledge, and don't let him scare you with those last 2 scenarios. I think once you read the letter that Parr put together and the findings we have of that stream, I think anybody with even a little bit of experience can tell that what we're dealing out there is certainly intermittent. So that's the path we're on. I feel fairly confident that's what we're gonna find here, but we just have to go through the process. And the other thing I want to point out is the plan that Spencer's showing works for either scenario. And this plan has been circulated to the chief. He's done a review of it. There might be some final tweaks, things like that, but I don't want to speak for you, chief, but I think you're much happier with this version than the one we looked at last time.
It's much more functional.
Yeah. I think circulation-wise, this works a lot better. So I'm happy to see that too. The other thing I just wanted to ask, and I don't think you really touched on it for people that might not understand, is in the last one, we weren't in that 200 buffer zone at all with the building. Now we are. Why are we allowed to do that? Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, so essentially there was a lot of min-maxing that I was trying to do, in the last meeting where I was nervous about the riverfront area and the cost implications. A previous concept had been floated during the entire stages of the schematic design development of this project, where the station was more proposed here with access here, and so I was trying to weigh the balance of restoration is going to be a lot of money. I'm trying to minimize that, but also have accessibility and figure out ways to still make the fire station viewable. Obviously, there are review tasks that need to happen when you make a decision like that, and so we took that information and we tried to make a better design while still sort of saying, because the conversation that I had with Kyle immediately after last meeting was, maybe we can make the building more efficient, shape it a little better so that I can tuck it down this way and impact the riverfront area less if we are going to end up impacting riverfront area.
Yeah.
So, it was clear that, there was an amount of restoration that we could stomach, and that, maybe I need to put less priority on minimizing riverfront impacts, especially if, the most likely scenario, in my opinion now, is that there won't be any riverfront impacts at all.
Yeah.
So, it's much easier to design around the most likely and best scenario now that we have all this information, and that is thanks to Nate's pressure on that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the building can, you're showing that 200-foot buffer. There's no code or standard that says the building can't be in that 200-foot buffer.
No,
It just means more restoration.
Yeah, if you're impacting this square area, you need to restore the square area. So, we believed that we were going to be able to make this argument, and I detailed it a little bit last meeting. We believed all along that we were going to be able to make this argument, and so that's what I've sort of been trying to design around. And so the obvious, just by looking at the general layout and the colors and everything, the obvious move is to move as much of the site down south as possible, and really just try to compact everything that you have going on in this area, fit as much in it, so that you're impacting the riverfront area less. So since then, that's the sort of weight that I've been trying to sort of balance at that point.
Great.
Taylor, let me, if I can,
Yeah.
just real quick on this. So the main reason we're trying to do this is because the fire station is gonna be a better fire station by moving it forward. What's so important to know here is that we're not looking for waivers. We're not looking for favors from conservation or anything else. DEP has created a standard in which we can take what is designated to be a perennial stream and run it through a test. And when that test, and it's there for this reason, when that test reflects evidence, strong evidence that it's intermittent, it's allowable, not through waiver or any kind of grace given. It's a process because all of these rivers are not identified with boots on the ground surveys. A lot of them are done with LIDAR, historic evidence, and they're always conservative. So we want to know that these things exist, and that's why there's a test to prove that there's something different than what they're originally labeled. So I think it's important to mention that. And the other piece to this is there's a seesaw going on. So the seesaw is also the natural heritage implications, right? By condensing the site closer to Bedford Street, closer to the entranceway to Ted Williams Camp, you're no longer fragmenting priority habitat. You're using priority habitat, but as Spencer's showing right there, we're no longer fragmenting it. So we've lessened the impact of the parks by, and I don't remember the numbers, but let's say we're 50% less lot disturbance with the new plan than the old plan, or even if it's 25% less. That's gonna have an impact on our mitigation to natural heritage. They're gonna really look at this and say, you guys have done everything you possibly could do to lessen impact to priority habitat for the eastern box turtles. So, there is that balance in the conservation world. We're doing one thing. Some people might look at it and say, you're trying to get around something. We're not. We're actually benefiting priority nesting habitat of the eastern box turtles. So I wanna make sure I'm clear, with that, and we're making a better fire station.
Yeah. I want to expand upon that in terms of the ANRAD process that we're going to try to go through here. I'm a conservation commissioner on another commission in Attleboro. If you have an ANRAD application in front of you, that application is specifically to look at the natural resources and lock them in. If I'm submitting an ANRAD for this parcel, it has no mention of a fire station. You're not presenting a fire station to Conservation Commission. A fire station is not on the table for discussion. There is nothing to be said about a fire station. I'm simply looking at my colorful lines and saying, yes, I agree with those, or no, I don't. So, in terms of putting this in front of conservation, this is not it doesn't become a fire station issue. It becomes, these are the natural resources that we believe fit the site. Do you agree, yes or no? And that is the discussion that's had. There is no mention of fire stations during the ANRAD process or whatever development might be had. So that's not on the table for discussion during that permitting process.
That's a very good point. And, even with that change in the ANRAD, I think it helps any development further down the line that's gonna be building here, there, you know, anywhere on Bedford Street. So, I think it's a good thing if the town does go ahead and, you know, make that, it benefits developers.
Do you, Spencer, do you feel comfortable enough, you and the team at PAR, that we can get this new plan to Brian Madden? Because we're kind of been in a little bit of a holding pattern, so you're gonna, if you can email that to him.
Yeah, I want to have this discussion tonight, and then, you know.
And then he can contact Natural Heritage, get that, conversation started. And
Yes.
I think we'll be in really, really good shape as far as, site design.
I had the very same discussion with him earlier this week, and said, hey, what do you need from me to get that discussion generated? He said, just a site plan, so.
Terrific.
Great.
But yeah, to echo, both the sentiments here is, we very much believe this intermittent stream is a winning argument. There are other non-regulatory pieces of evidence that go into this. You know, if you look at stream stats, this is only a 1/4 of an acre drainage area that goes into this site, and the threshold is 1/2 an acre. So we're, you know, by a factor of 50%, you know, lower than the regulatory threshold to just actually have that discussion. So we very much believe it's a winning argument. We have all the evidence ahead of us, and we believe it's now the correct path forward for the project to design around that outcome.
So outside of passing this on to Madden, you know, for National Heritage, it would be to schedule time on the agenda for conservation. Is that correct?
To submit put an ANRAD application together and submit it, yes.
Okay.
Because that is totally independent of any design development that we're working
Right.
on. Because like I mentioned, the idea of a fire station is off the table when we're submitting an ANRAD. So we have all that information right now, and we could move forward with it
Okay.
as soon as we are, you know, greenlit.
Yeah, can I touch on that too?
Sure.
So Spencer, actually got himself on the agenda for Concom Tuesday night. And when we noticed that, it was just really Spencer through talking through, the chairperson there, and working through this and trying to find the quickest way possible for this to get through. And, you know, after we saw that and we started talking more, you know, the idea of the ANRAD came up more, and we wanted to do this a little bit differently. So we asked to be taken off the agenda because there was new plans, there was updates coming. So really the only reason that we asked to be taken off that is because we had updated information coming. Spencer was still working on the letter, the documentation, so there was no other reason to pull it just because we really weren't ready. He was kind of put on there, I think a little abruptly, just in conversations of trying to get, you know, things going, which I can't fault Spencer for. So that's why, if there's any question about if you saw it on the Concom, that's why it was canceled. Because when we saw it, we said, well, let's put a little hold on this first and come back to them once we have everything.
And we wanted to have the conversation here.
Yeah,
first,
absolutely, yeah.
And get that update.
I didn't want to be sending an email around, you know, Tuesday morning, hey, just FYI, we're on conservation. It was very quick and abrupt that it came up, so.
It was well intended.
Yeah, it was, but
well intended.
wasn't the right time. So we retracked, and I think Spencer's done a very good job, and PAR's done a very good job of putting us on the right track now.
Okay, great. Super.
Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of, you know, my capacity now, you know, if we can iron out a few of the small details associated with the site design here and get to a point where everybody is at least, you know, 90% comfortable with everything that's going on. Obviously, there are things that come up even during design development that foster change. You know, as long as everybody gets generally comfortable with the site design, I would be primed for a design development scope and being able to press my foot on the gas and be ready for mid-September, whenever those deadlines are coming up. I'm ready to go.
Thank you. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Spencer.
no problem.
So in this process, looking at the change we've made to the buildings, you have in front of you the first pass of the revised plan. So what we have been able to do is, I think we're making the building more efficient by this change than it was the original design, and a little more functional. So in initial conversations with the chief, if you remember the original schematic design, we had a small, one of the bays was smaller with the intention of being only for ambulances. That'd be the first bay, closest to the office and living space. Through conversations with the chief, his comment was really, you know, it works fine now, but it kind of limits potential uses in the future. Maybe things change, maybe ambulance goes away, who knows what happens in the future. So we have increased the size of that bay, so now all your bays are the same size. They can all take a fire truck. We've actually separated. Originally that bay had second floor space over the top of it. Now it doesn't, so all the bays are the same height, open area. You can put pretty much any of your equipment in any door. And I think that's proven out with the new layout too, where we're not restricted by site, we're not restricted by, you know, size. Any equipment can go anywhere. So if there's a drastic change where the tower happens to be the most used piece of equipment, that's kind of how we've always laid this out. That could go in the first bay because that would be the easiest piece for them to get to. So other than that small change in the apparatus bay basically stayed the same. All our changes were really in the office and the living quarters. So the plan in front of you is actually 500 square feet less than the original plan. And after kind of putting this through, going through a couple passes with the chief, we said there's things we like about this, but there's still things we think we can improve on. Specifically, if you're looking at the first floor, the kind of after we got through and everything fit and fit on the site, everything was going good. I started looking and said the position of the elevator doesn't make sense. It's too close to the apparatus bay. It's going to require, to isolate that from what is potentially dirty area and hazardous materials. It's going to actually hinder their operation on a daily basis. So we're currently working on a plan to move that internal more so that we can make that separation from hazardous material to green. That elevator really needs to be in an area where it's not exposed to hazardous material in any way. And as part of that, we're actually making this smaller. So we think we can make it smaller still without altering the function of the space. We think there's still, in this plan, there's still a lot of corridor space. There's still a lot of transition space. We're trying to, kind of compress that. And then we may be able to move that in the same thing, move the whole, kind of this whole wing, front and back. So we're trying to, it's not really, we haven't made it narrower, but we've been able to start to squish it this way. And then its position to the apparatus bay may move as well. So we think we can improve some things that are, as Spencer alluded to, I think specifically the kind of visitor parking up there is really close to the intersection. I think we're all pretty happy with 4 spaces. We don't see that as being a major, a lot of people coming at once. So that's kind of just a quick in and out space. We had a discussion today that if they have people arrive that need help, that's the location, and how do we get them to the ambulance, and how do we connect that without creating a bottleneck in that front. But I think these changes we're working on, that we'll hopefully have to the chief in the next day or so, will help improve that on the site as well. And then if you look upstairs on the second floor, again, this is really about consolidating. So now we have a strong kind of core where the bunks and the baths are, living and day room in the back. And one of the things we're exploring, this was based on let's make sure it fits, let's make it work. We think we can essentially flip this, which will help improve the overall appearance and aesthetics of the front of the station. So that right now, if you're looking at this, we have all these bunks along the front, and each bunk has to have a window. So we were just going to fill the front of the window, second floor, just be window, 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 window. And so if we kind of mirror it, it allows us to be a little more flexible with the front of the building to really help improve the aesthetics. So those are the kind of little things we're going through now, but we anticipate that there will be another reduction in square footage, in
And-
overall building square footage through that process.
Not that Bedford Street's super loud too, but it gets your sleeping quarters in the back of the building that's a little more quiet out there.
Yeah. I think that's the kind of, the only reason we were hoping to have that. We actually have the changes to the first floor we're pretty comfortable with. It's trying to figure out the second floor that kind of delayed it from being able to get it out today, but we didn't want to, we want to give the chief a chance to really digest the changes. Because some of them are, I won't say, they're significant changes, but they're trying to, you know, meet all of his needs while making the overall building a little more efficient.
They may be significant, but they don't change any program.
Yeah, so we're gonna, the next plan the chief sees the layout will be significantly different without, you know, cutting anything. We're not cutting anything, we're not cutting equipment. We're trying to focus, you'll see in this back area now, you know, we're trying to get the stairs to the gear room and out to the apparatus floor, and be able to get from the apparatus floor to the decon room without going through the gear room or the stairwell.
Thank you.
And that's,
I was gonna ask that.
yes, that back corner is a little rough.
I would ask that.
We haven't really flushed that out yet either. That's another area we're really trying to flush out. So we're trying to meet all their kind of operational needs and flows while eliminating as much kind of corridor and unused space as possible.
So a couple of the early wins or the early benefits to the new design is if you look at the washroom and you see that direct access onto the apparatus floor. Washroom, like we will become aware of a call or an emergency in town. We're not sure if we're going, we're collecting information. People migrate towards the washroom because that's where the information comes in. And then we bolt out the door. And just that door there lowers response time. Like we're efficiently getting out the door. And on the second floor, you have the two staircases on either end of the building. So if it's daylight hours, the guys are up having a meal. They got a stairwell right there, quick access down to the first floor, out into the apparatus bay. On the bunk room side is another stairwell. They get up in the middle of the night for a call. They're in close proximity to the stairs, out they go. So like those things I noticed, they create efficiencies in our operation. And the big one for me was that now we have 6 full-size stalls, instead of 5 in a smaller stall. So it gives the future chief, whoever they may be, flexibility in where they put their apparatus. So it's already a better design, and I do see opportunities for even more efficiencies here. So I appreciate your work. I'm pretty pleased with these developments.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll, you know, by the next time we'll have another couple passes through versions with the chief, and you know, at the next meeting we should have kind of something that's really kind of condensed and really efficient, both for the town and for their function, because obviously we can connect areas they need to connect through corridors, but if every 5 feet of corridor you can eliminate so they can move efficiently, it's time. So we're just kind of working through that right now, and how compact can we make it without losing, you know, the space they actually need.
Are you still targeting August to get this out for estimate? Did that slide a little bit into September, or?
It might slide a little bit as we develop this. Obviously, the end date we can't change, and we're trying to give you as much time to kind of present this to the community before the town meeting.
Yeah.
But we've taken a pretty drastic change from where we were a couple months ago. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, we took half the building and just kind of threw it out and started over again. So, we might be a little bit behind, but, you know, once we have something that's efficient, if we can get something down now that everybody likes and is really efficient, and we're not kind of fighting these extra spaces or extra square footage that we don't need, I think we can try to make it up at the end.
November 12th, right?
What's that?
We voted Monday night for November 12th for fall
Yes.
town meeting.
Yeah, that's what
For special town meeting.
that's what we had in
Okay.
our schedule. And the public relations window, we had 2 months in there, which, you know, sometimes can be too much. There's a little bit of float time in there. As long as we have, I think, a month leading up to town meeting, we have plenty of time to present this, but.
And I think what we'll have is, we have an opportunity to start kind of presenting the building and the site,
Yeah.
and then present the number. So we can, you know, there's gonna be two different things. We're gonna have presentation material for what it's gonna look like. And then the delay is really in getting that final number. And, you know, so maybe in that 2 month period, maybe there is some presentation of what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, that final month brings the hard number, so that you can kind of say, look, we've been working to reduce the square footage. We're trying to make this as efficient as possible. This is what the building looks like, and in a couple weeks, we'll have the final number, you know, leading into that. So we're trying to stay on that path, but this probably set us back a few weeks.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the warrant closes on September 6th.
Okay.
And we'll have it by September 6th.
So we will, so obviously we can put a hold on it. You know, so early October, we're gonna need to know the cost of the project. Cause we're gonna go to the town meeting for a bond authorization, I assume.
Yeah.
Debt exclusion for April.
Yeah.
April town election, I would think.
Mhm.
You don't want a special election,
I would think, no.
yeah,
I think that,
the town
you know,
election.
we need to be
Yeah.
a little cognizant of spending, so.
We're gonna need a project cost.
Full project cost by September 6th, or you can.
No, we can put a hold on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll need it October, early October.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we want to at least keep, we were thinking at least a month of, you know, with a number that you guys can go out, you know, share it with the town, make sure that there's plenty of time
Yeah.
leading up to that. So,
Yeah.
you know, and we'll be, you know, in the next few weeks, we'll know kind of where we're at with the building, and then it's, you know, just kind of
Yeah.
full steam, put the drawings together to get,
Yeah,
that estimate.
I don't want to speak for you, Kyle, but I think what you're saying will work out fine. I don't see
Okay.
any issues hitting those dates.
yeah, no, I mean, ideally, we wouldn't change any of the dates that we kind of set before, previously. You know, the goal is to stay on it, even though we kind of backtracked a little bit, but, you know, I think that with the dates that kind of have officially been set now, we can meet those, and, we'll make it work. I mean, we definitely don't want to lose 6 months by delaying this, so.
Right.
Agreed.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, do you wanna look at those dates, reverse engineer it, and make sure that we get something, to Kyle and Rick and, you know, Taylor, the team, what the latest date for a hard number is, what the latest date is, for everything, that way
Yeah.
they just know the date, and you gotta work into that, and if it's October and.
Tell me the date and then I'll tell Kyle 10 days early.
Oh, no, he's right on time, I can
Yeah.
tell he's on this.
Then we tell the estimators 10 days before that, so I
You said you can tell me 10 days.
yeah.
So we need it Thursday.
It might be just really a lot more comforting to know
Yeah.
what the deadlines
Yeah.
are, and then the expectations there to say, okay, look, this just gotta be done by then.
Yeah, I think everybody knew this was gonna be pretty tight going into this, and I think Secoshia was open about that too, that hitting this deadline would be tight, so. But I think, based on what we've seen, I feel much better than, you know, after we left last meeting. There was a lot up in the air, but the design team, I think, has done a lot to get us back on track, so.
Okay. Speaking of which, I know that we have on the agenda to, establish a design team with participation. So, I don't know what you would be looking for from the committee, 2 members?
I think it's as long as you don't have a quorum.
5 is quorum.
Yeah, so you could get four members. It's just so that if we need to meet, or the design team needs to meet kind of quickly to have, you know, put our heads together on something, we can.
I think 2 would be best.
And
4 is kind of too close.
Yeah.
this goes, you know, we've been working with the chief, to kind of get to this point, and what that subgroup would allow is, some other input along with the chiefs, and, you know, when we're going through these, you know, we get the chief's input, the committee kind of has some other input that may bring new light to that, so that when we bring these to the committee, it's not new to everybody, and it's not, you know,
I mean,
just us and
the chief's gotta be
saying,
on it, so.
This is it,
I was
you know?
gonna say,
So if you do a
Number
committee
one
of two,
would be
pick
chief.
one more.
I motion Nate and the chief.
I know you're,
So I just want to ask a quick question first. You ever see the design team broken up into discipline? Because again, I don't want to, I mean, I was on the fire department for a long time as a call firefighter, but I don't want to take away from operations. And yet I want to be involved in mechanical and stuff like that. And I really want Matt involved as well. So is there a way in Kate Shing,
Right.
her expertise in the mechanical application, I really want to see it broken down that way. Mike doesn't care about the mechanicals. He, you know, maybe the time events
they
and
just
stuff like
work,
that. I'd like to see this broken down in a little bit of a different capacity where, you know, perhaps, Mike and Mike are working with you on floor plans, design like that, and maybe Matt and Katie can take a look at mechanical applications and things of that nature. And I'm fine just being copied on the information so that I can weigh in as
Good idea.
time allows.
In my
Hey,
head,
Larry,
What did I?
Team Nate and Larry.
I was sitting there nice and
Or
quiet.
just sit back and strong arm people.
so in my head, they, you know, everybody in our department, not everybody, but a lot of people in the department hang on everything that happens in this meeting. And I'd like to, you know, not maybe as far as being officially recognized by this group, but I'm basically like an ad hoc committee within the department to do quick reviews of all this stuff. So they'll bang feedback on me, and that's kind of how I envision it. I don't know how this plays into the formulation of this design group, or if you incorporate it into the design group. I defer to the people that build buildings.
I think whereas other members of the fire department aren't on the building committee, I mean, I think you could have as many of them as you wanted weighing in on the design. So, you know, if you and Mike took lead on that with Secotio, and then invite whatever staff you want to
Yeah.
with. I mean, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, you could sit in on meetings if you want them to.
I think you're kind of onto something with everybody's specialty, right? So maybe rather than having a specific subcommittee, I think your subcommittee 1A is the fire chief and, maybe Mike or, fire department personnel, right? But maybe if there's design items, before the meeting comes out, Kyle says, look, this is what we're gonna have the meeting about, X, Y, and Z. Who do you want to attend?
Yeah, that's kind of what I envision too.
You know?
It'd be like, when we get to communications and things like that, the washroom area, I'd grab, Lieutenant Maltese, pull him in, because he went through the whole process here, like he would be a local expert, basically. And then he doesn't have to show up for anything else because it's not relevant to him. We would just pull people in as needed to make the project better.
Madam Chair, it can't be subcommittee, it should be like a working group.
But working group, yeah.
Working group, no subcommittee. All right, that's a good idea,
open
so,
meeting law can,
I know.
yeah.
And like
so you'll
same
let
thing
us know
from
and
you.
then we'll
Yeah, I think.
send the two to the, okay.
I think
that's
that might be the best, because if it is something,
Makes sense.
MEP related and, Matt wants to attend, then
good. That makes sense.
And I think those will come up shortly. This next kind of, hopefully over the next week or so, we kind of nail down a plan. I think that it really relates back to the chief and any, department members or how he sets up the department, weighing in on this kind of making this as efficient as possible. And as soon as that is set or, nearly set, there will always be adjustments to that. The next step really is getting the mechanical team involved. Electrical and plumbing is pretty simple, it's kind of straightforward, but the mechanical and understanding what kind of system the town wants, both from a facilities standpoint and from a daily operational standpoint, that's where the kind of next big piece that's gonna need kind of input from different directions is coming from.
Excellent.
That's good.
Look forward to it.
Good plan.
Perfect. Okay, so with regards to the project schedule, you know, I know that we already had one in place, you know, that we had, so let me, you know, work with Mr. Nunes about, what time, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, so when we meet back up, we'll.
Yeah, so, if you get us those dates, then I'll reverse engineer our stuff.
Yep.
And, work with Kyle to get his stuff, and we'll kind of give you a milestone schedule of, you know, this meeting for mechanical systems, this meeting for building elevations, you know, whatever it might be to get us, we'll work back and update our schedule based on.
And then, with the chief, as far as like the communicational pieces out to the, you know, to the outreach to the public too. Like, I wanna make sure that we, you know, I know that you're gonna be involved in that too, so, we'll have to make sure that gets on there too.
Yeah, and once this final update gets done with the floor plans, then we'll probably do a, you know, some sort of update to the public. Here's the final floor plans, you know, final elevations. That's, I think Kyle's right, sort of start putting the finalized things out there,
Yep.
you know, once they're ready to go.
Excellent. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
can
please.
I go just back a minute
course.
and through you? So I understand we're trying to compress the building and so forth and move things around. And again, the chief is the expert on how he wants his building to work and how he wants it designed, so, but I'm looking at all these plans and I see 2 areas for storage.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about working in a firehouse, but I do know, spend a lot of time in them. And every deputy and chief and everybody I've ever spoke to that's built new stations have all said one thing: build more storage. When you have enough storage, you need more storage. And all I see is 2 little storage places, and I'm concerned if we're compressing this building, that storage is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, that was on my list of concerns, and I've already eyeballed some space that could be created.
So, I will address that as part of the changes to the second floor. So if you look at the second floor, knowing that we're allowing for 8 bunks, you're probably not anywhere near that point anytime soon, so that's, you know, future growth.
Yes.
But what we're showing right now for kitchen, dining, and day room
It's
is
a big area.
is enormous.
It's huge.
So part of this shrinking that and rearranging this, the first floor is really about making the second floor more efficient.
Okay.
And what we're finding is we may have a fairly significant mezzanine that could be accessed both from the second floor and from the apparatus bay, because now there's a full height bay adjacent to it, which could be used for storage or training or both. I think in the first pass, we had almost 600 square feet we were just dedicating to mezzanine space. So I think some of that is being developed into this as we make the kind of path and function of it more efficient. There's still extra space in here that can be dedicated to storage that you're gonna get. So we can't, obviously you can make the second floor slightly smaller than the first floor and still make it work. You start making it too small and then it becomes a construction and structural problem. So we think there's gonna be extra space still in this plan when we're all said and done that can be dedicated for that.
And my last question was, and this may have been addressed in one of the meetings that I missed. I know originally I had brought it up is external training outside. Whatever you wanna call them, cargo containers, whatever.
Yeah.
Has that gone way of the dodo only because of where we're building now, or is that something that we've put into this plan at all? Because I mean, obviously you don't have a lot of, thank goodness, a lot of experience with fires here, right? I mean, you know, so to have the training facility on site is kind of a bonus to you versus shipping people out for training. Or setting more fires, it's up to you, I don't care.
It's one of the things that we identified as a need early on, and it kind of fell by the wayside. I took another run at it through ARPA funding, and it didn't make the cut. We're talking about buying a Connex box and modifying it to create our own burn trailer. We're gonna do it one way or another because it's so critical that our guys get to feel the heat and get experience crawling through a fire. So if we had a slab or even hard packed gravel anywhere on the property, that's where we're to go. You know, we just, it doesn't have to have pavement space, it just has to have level ground that can sit in there. It doesn't require utilities or anything like that. It's just, it can be simply a storage connex box that we turn into a burn building.
Yeah, what we typically do, what we typically see too is there's space called out for it. And then as we get towards the end of the project, if we find out that you're doing really well in the budget, then there's things like that. One building, we were able to add in a roof prop where they could cut holes in roofs and sheathe it, and, you know, we just had some, you know, extra money. So, I think the safe thing to do is make sure there's room for it, an area for it. And then if it can fit in with the FF&E, then you do it.
If you look back at kind of the development of the site plan, early on, we had a designated area for it.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the current site plan, when we're not showing it, the general layout of the site plan still has that area for it. So at the end of the parking space where the kind of, there's a grass area here, there's kind of this dead space. That's always been a carryover for potentially putting something out there. As this develops, what we'll do is we'll start looking at how much space you have, how much space you need clear around that. Because obviously that impacts, you know, you can't put that under trees. You gotta have some maneuverability out there, because they don't wanna train and then have to put out a forest fire, you know, immediately following the training.
Extra
Yeah.
training. Degree of difficulty.
So that will come back in, I think, as this has been developed, some of those kind of extra pieces have just been, I won't say dropped, but they've been moved aside as we develop the main focus of the site. But the general layout of it, the space is actually still there.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So we have an invoice here, for approval. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
To approve invoice 151630 in the amount of $462.50 to LEC.
Right, motion, second.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll please.
Noon's eye.
McCullough, aye.
Brian, I.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Constant, aye.
And with that, any old business in front of the committee? New business? All right, our next meeting is scheduled for right now, August 28th. We have you know, Christina had, done us a solid, scheduled us all the way through November on the 2nd and 4th. So, the 28th would be our next scheduled meeting at 6:30 here.
2 weeks. Yep.
2 weeks. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:43 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll, we'll just do a quick roll.
Noon's eye.
McCullough, aye.
Brian, I.
Carboni, aye.
Simon, aye.
Constant, aye.
Excellent.